We're now moving forward to a very interesting session with a lot to learn for sure, and with a touch of the international side. Once again, let's put our hands together as I present to you this very special interview session. I'll now have two of our special guests on stage. Let's put our hands together as I welcome on stage Mr. Javier Quintana, Director, IDOM UK, former Dean, IE School of Architecture. He's an internationally recognized architect who's also worked as a lecturer on design at the University of Navarra and has done various research projects and appreciated for the same. Let's put our hands together as I welcome on stage Mr. Quintana. And to give him company, I'd like to request Mr. Rahul Kadri to join us on stage yet again. We welcome you, sir. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Kadri as we get set for this very interesting session. Gentlemen, all yours.
Okay, all right. Okay, then it should be around 15. Can you hear me? 15, okay. All right. Okay, thank you, Rahul. Rahul Kadri from Kadri Consultants in Mumbai. I'm Javier Quintana. As the introducer said, I'm a practicing architect international. I'm from Spain, but I live and practice in the UK. I have some work in India. When preparing, I've been part of the advisory board of this event, and when preparing this, we thought that one of the things that could be brought into the audience as a probably a bit controversial topic, but still interesting, was the role of the international firms as opposed to the local in this process of building India, and how, and now I connect with the topic, how for some reason seems to be that the internationals are supposed to be the ones flagging ship in the modernity as opposed to local firms more engaged in tradition. I know this is a very simple way of putting things, but I come from a world in which we've gone through this dialogue and this discussion where there are countries in Europe which have at various years invited people from other countries to, let's say, excite the architectural scene, giving them the protagonism of some of the most important and relevant pieces of architecture, creating actually out of that this kind of star system of architects operating in other countries. And I was wondering which would be the translation of that here. Because for sure now there's been 2 decades of highly active international practices that are collaborating with locals. And at this point we can, when you drive, when you fly, when you visit Indian cities, there's a good bunch of buildings, and not only buildings, but a master plan and many other initiatives that are built at this point. And I wanted to ask an architect like you that comes from, well, the very city of design and architecture as it's Mumbai and has international experience. What is your thought? Do you, at this point, you think that those 20 years of activity of international collaboration with locals? How do you see them? What's your feeling?
Um, we started collaborating with the international firms. I think the first time was when we were doing a hospital in Mumbai. And what we were struck by was the process of design. I felt the process was far more rigorous, far more structured. The way they were able to define what the issues were this was an existing hospital which needed to be upgraded. So the way they would participate and ask and would be willing to listen to what was actually needed in the hospital, that was refreshing, and that would not have been the way we would have worked. We would have interviewed a few people in the hospital and then probably arrived at a set of assumptions. Here we felt it was far more research-based, where the interview process went over 2 or 3 weeks. So one, I feel that the process of design is far more thorough. And we've been able to learn from that quite a lot. So the collaborations have always benefited us, that it has made our practice that much stronger the next time we are to approach the similar kind of building.
But still, when I've been part of that similar process in other situations, and I do believe that probably we come from maybe a more rigorous world, but we still lack quite some knowledge that is, the one of being Indian, the being understanding. And do you see hope in that? Because you can easily see how many international buildings literally are here are landed, as we say,
Absolutely.
and they are not rooted. Do you see hope? Because from my point of view, what this country, awaiting at this point is going to be an explosion of construction. It will be slow but steady, and this is an issue that is going to happen again.
Yeah.
So
I think the reason that international firms are being hired are the wrong ones. They're being hired for a brand value. And that, I believe, is the wrong thing. There was a developer over here who spoke about silos. So it needs to be a collaboration. What's been happening is that an international firm is hired to do the concepts, and then an Indian firm is to do the working drawings. And that usually that translation from the concept to the working drawing doesn't work very well. There's a lot of thought that is lost. And as you said, there's a lot of enrichment that can happen through a collaboration, because there's a lot that we obviously know about the culture. Now, if I go to Spain as a designer and want to design, one, I will see it very differently, because an outsider sees things very differently than a person who's already there. So my eye is different, but there will be certain things I might completely miss. So if I have a collaboration, so I come with my international eye, and I'm dealing with what the context is much more, then it will lead to a far richer development. So I think that's where the fundamental mistake is. This collaboration is not truly happening.
As I said, I am part of this, and I could not agree with you more. I mean, from my point of view, collaborating is the word, but not just on the technical side, but more on the ideological side, the conceptual side, and this is split between concept is developed outside, development and detailed drawings are done here. I think this is a very obsolete way of collaborating. From my point of view, my experience of Indian architects is that they are probably more well-traveled than any other Western one. Every time I come to this country, I find myself feeling very local, even if I have quite some miles in my body. And I don't know, if we're trying to set trends or at least some discussions. I think that one of the keys for the development of this international layer is to invert a bit the roles to be more balanced in that way. I think it's unavoidable in a way that the international layer has to be there. Yeah. You have such a challenge ahead of you, but still, it has to be with the right way. In any case, how do you see, because this story has two sides, and I've always wondered, why always the international come to India? India has such a tradition of architects. Indian architecture is one of the most prestigious in the world. We all know about key places here that are places of pilgrimage even for architects. And, well, not only the ones built by the Europeans, but other ones. How do you see it possible that Indian firms engage and believe in themselves that they have a role now outside India?
I think that's always been there to some extent. For example, in the Middle East, there's a lot of Indian firms in Dubai, in Muscat, Qatar. So where the opportunity is, I think Indian firms do go. Maybe it's our belief that the opportunity presently is not there so much in Europe, or that we will not be accepted. So that maybe we're limiting ourselves in some way to go there. But also I think there's some legal barriers in working there, visa statuses and all of that, which don't allow Indian firms to go out. But more than anything else, I think there's so much work over here that we're kind of struggling to cope with the amount of work we have over here. And hopefully there will be, for the next decade or so at the least, plenty of work.
Hopefully, I think, well, there's so much to be done. It's fascinating, and there's a lot of been done already. But the last panel was so inspirational. Setting some of the challenges which are huge, but it speaks, about not only about the size of the problem, but also about the excitement and then the attraction of what it has to be done. Is it really a unique opportunity, a country of this size that is really saying, we need to rebuild part of the country, and we cannot do, well, what we've been doing so far, or at least we have to learn from that. Linking to this learning, if you had to now give advice or, give a comment of what would you like things to be as opposed to things have been in this combination between international and local, would you have any ideas for improvement?
Yeah, I think two things. One is we learned from China, which says that any international firm working in China has to collaborate with a local firm. They cannot do any project on their own only. It has to be a collaboration. Secondly, the one method that I found worked very well for us is that we had a client who wanted us to design a 1,000-acre development. And I said, 1,000 acres is just too big. I've never seen it. We will need a strategic partner. So the client says, okay, you go get yourself a partner. And then so we went and hired an HOK to work with us. And so from the client's point of view, they got technical expertise, but it was very integrated because we were working together. We hired and got the expertise into the country. So then it was a collaboration in the true sense, because we were responsible for the delivery in the end, but we took the benefit of the international exposure that this company had to help our client solve a problem. So I think that method, either the Indian architect goes out and collaborates in conjunction, so the client approves, says, okay, you say who, and then, but it should happen so that there's a completeness in the design, there's a completeness in the process. there are too many projects, especially hotels we see, where the client at the end of the day is really tearing their hair out because the integration is not there. And that's happening in hotels, in townships, in hospitals, in buildings, happening everywhere, where there is this separation, and that one person, you can't have a collaboration. There has to be one person who's in charge at the end to deliver it. So there has to be one architect who's in charge to take it till the end. And that's important.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I definitely think there's I mean, so many challenges, and I cannot, but being someone related to education, in one of the challenges about this future and these ideas that you're throwing to how to improve it, I also think that one of the key issues is that Indian education system in architecture and planning understands that you have to train people with the mentality of what is going to happen. Because I have some experience, and I think that maybe education is more still thought in a smaller scale. I don't see, let's say, enough design culture at schools that try to engage the scale of things happening, as you know, these mushroom cities and the landscape, and that is also one layer that I think I wanted to put. You said that before when we spoke about this, that you are not in education, but don't you have that feeling that there's also this need that the educational institutions here in this country should push for a more ambitious agenda, so their graduates, they are ready for the task, kind of?
Absolutely, and I think what we spoke about, what you said, what your schools in Spain and London do, is entrepreneurial skills for architects. I think that's really important. Not only from how to run our offices, our practices, but how to actually think like an entrepreneur, so that you are literally in the shoes of your client. Or how do you create a project out of nothing? We saw the TED talk in the morning, where the architect actually raised the funds. So he was an entrepreneur who was responsible for the whole project, in a sense. So we need that kind of activism, where we don't necessarily wait for a client to come. We create a project. So being entrepreneurs in that sense, I think, is really important. But when you're talking about scale, when I went to school, at the least, the scale was huge. When we were always talking about from the small to the very large. So I don't relate with what you're saying, that the Indian schools don't deal with the scale of the problem. I think what we don't deal with is, we only train someone to work in an office, and we don't train someone to lead an office. Okay. I think that's the difference. I think we've run out of time, and I have a flight to catch.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank
Raul,
you so
for
much.
your time.
Thank you.
And see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Kadri, Mr. Quintana, and may I request Mr. Kapoor to join us on stage once again, and thank both the gentlemen for this special session. Mr. Kadri, may I request you to please stay on for a couple of more minutes. We have a token of appreciation for both of you. We know you have a flight to catch, so here's wishing you a safe journey. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so very much.